And welcome back to This Week. Time now to get the views of our media and political experts. Nashville Democratic State Representative Brenda Gilmore rejoins us, and syndicated talk show host Steve Gill. Welcome again. Another busy week in Washington and here in Nashville. The 7-hour summit yesterday, the bipartisan summit on health care reform. Did it move the needle any? I mean, it seems like they left about where they were, agreeing on a couple of things, but really not much movement in either direction.
I think David Gergen, former chief of staff at the White House, said it best, that the Republicans really had their best day that they've had in years, really. Because for the last several months, the Obama administration and the Democrats in the Congress have said the Republicans are the party of no, they don't have any ideas, they don't have any plans, they don't care about health care. Well, for those that did watch, and there weren't probably many of us that did, you got a chance to see that they did have people who were very articulate in terms of policy positions. They do have proposals. They're not just saying no to everything. They're saying we ought to do it differently. And I think from that standpoint, they got an opportunity, even though they had a lot less time than everybody else speaking yesterday, to lay out their case. I think they did it pretty well.
Well, I was proud that the president offered the olive leaf to say, let's try one more time to come around the table. And I thought that they did a very good job of who they invited around the table. I was very pleased to hear about that. I think to the American people, though, we saw too much of being a Republican or being a Democrat. I think we wanted to see more of points that they agreed on. And it was very clear that the line is drawn very deep in the sand, and that whether you're a Republican or a Democrat was more important than them coming up with agreements on what's good for Americans. And I think most of us want to see them agree on those points that they can and to pass this bill and move on to jobs and getting people back employed.
The president kind of said at the end of it, we won the election, we tried to get a compromise, but there's too big a philosophical divide. So basically what he's going to do is take what he is proposing, or partial of what he is proposing, and see if the Democrats can get it approved.
And I don't think they're going to be able to do that. And I think part of the problem with the gathering, and I agree with Brenda that it was a nice outreach, but why do you do it on the back end after you've had deadline after deadline, after you've tried to force it through? Why didn't they have this? Why don't we come together and exchange ideas on the front end? That's how most people do their planning and create policy, not as a final, if you don't go along with this, we're going to shove it down your throats anyway. I think they cannot do that. I don't think they have the votes in the House, frankly, and while they may be able to pass it in the Senate with 51, 52% votes, I don't think the House is going to go along with that because they've got too many people at risk.
Well, even in this new plan that the president has put forth, there are parts in it that he's included that were Republican sponsored. And yesterday, we didn't even see any acknowledgement of that. There were even some parts that Senator McCain had himself sponsored, and there was no acknowledgement of that. So it's pretty clear that people are choosing sides, either Democrat or Republican, and I think that's the point where Americans are really tired of that. They're tired of that.
The problem is the devil's in the details. I think there are some broad arrangements. If you kind of look at the headline of, do we agree that this ought to be done? Yes, but it's how you do it. And unfortunately, the president's plan is 11 pages. And when you get into the details, that's really where the divide in how you do it, not what you do is created. And when you look at not the president's 11-page synopsis, but the 2,400-page bill, a lot of what the president says in how it's enacted in the actual legislation is a far cry from what Republicans
can agree. He made it clear, too, he does not want this to drag on. He says if it doesn't happen by the end of March, we'll shelve it.
Yes, and he even said in the end, we will give the GOP one additional month. So I think that there's still some time for them to come together and to figure out where they can agree on and to move forward.
Of course, Harry Reid today said that's the president's timetable, not mine. So again, part of the problem is you've got the president, Nancy Pelosi, and Harry Reid disagreeing. I mean, the president could have passed this package without a single Republican vote. He had 60 in the Senate. He has control of the House. It's not that Republicans have stopped him. It's that the American people have stopped this, and I don't think they've changed their mind.
Here in Nashville, a difficult issue you're going to be dealing with. TennCare cuts again rearing their ugly head because of budget shortfalls, because revenue is still down, and there really isn't much option. You're looking at some of the programs, and the question is going to be how many people are taken off the roll and for what reasons.
Well, when I meet people in the street, they really want us to look at maybe using either some creative ways of bringing additional funds into hospitals and our medical industry so that there would not have to be such deep cuts, or they want to see us use more reserves. And I certainly would like us to take a deeper look other than just cutting the TennCare rolls. I don't think that we can balance the budget on the back of completely sick people. So I would like to, I know that our governor wants to leave a healthy reserve for the next governor. the next few years are not going to be pretty. And we all know that we're facing a deep deficit. However, I would like us to do one more review and possibly use some more of those reserves other than cutting so many deep in the TennCare.
The problem is TennCare takes up such a huge part of the budget.
It does.
And when you look at the growth of spending, and you're going to continue to see that growth in health care expenditures, that's not really turning. It's kind of like we talked a little bit last week. The problem with using the reserves is that if you thought you were at the end of the tough times, it would make some sense. But it's not like we're in a situation where we can just bridge a few more months and things are going to get better. Just this week, another 496,000 people nationally filed new unemployment claims. In the last 2 weeks, the unemployment claims have been 12% higher. So we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And until we're kind of closer to that, I think digging into your reserves until you absolutely positively have to may be a bit risky.
And there really aren't many other options. You have to reduce TennCare rolls or dig into the reserve.
Exactly.
Also this week, lawmakers discussed, really, it's too bad this has to be discussed, but the possibility of increasing penalties for people who attack referees or umpires during sporting events. And you would think that you wouldn't need such a law, but apparently the referees and umpires are really concerned out there. It's gotten out of hand, hasn't it?
In fact, one of the laws that I sponsored last year was protecting bus drivers, and it's really sad that we live in this kind of society where we have to continue pass stiff laws to protect those people who provide services. But if that's what we have to do, then I think that that's certainly a step that we need to move toward.
Look, as an athlete, I certainly never liked referees. When I was playing at the University of Tennessee, they weren't guys I had an affinity for. But it's amazing to me when you look at the people that cause trouble at Little League and all these other places, it's usually people who were never an athlete themselves. I mean, the folks that have been there and done that aren't trying to prove themselves through their own 7-year-old. And I think, unfortunately, we've got a point in a society where people are maybe trying to live their lives through their kids' lives, and we just need to all kind of ratchet it down. And, the referees are doing the best they can. In the lifetime of a kid, they're going to win hundreds and thousands of games. They're going to lose hundreds of thousands. A Pee Wee League 7th grade player winning or losing that day really isn't going to affect their long-term career.
Some people forget it's all about the kids out there.
Right.
Suddenly becomes about the adults.
It's the parents who are acting out.
Brenda, Gilmore, Steve Gill, appreciate your insights. Stay with us. This week continues in a moment.